It's quite natural for kids to have ups and downs when it comes to school and studying, and this is a part of life for many kids. However, for some people, a lack of focus for school becomes a major problem and can lead to hardships in a person's future. Educational psychologist Dr. Ken Resnick is here to tell us what you can do when your child loses interest in school and studying. Good morning, Dr. Ken, and thank you for joining me once again.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Once again, thanks for inviting me.
All right, so why do kids lose interest in school and studying?
I think what we've got to understand, we've got to go right back to the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I think the important thing is that we're not doing the right job early on. They're watching too much TV. You must remember, children are born actually with a sense of curiosity. They're
Yeah.
born ready to explore their world, to get out there. That's how they're born. They want to learn. We've got a brain. We've gone into space. We've got an amazing brain. But the problem is, as parents, we've got to sort of guide them. And early on, what's happening today, because of COVID, so many kids are staying at home, driving parents mad. A lot of them are just being left to watch TV, and they want to be entertained. You know, they've got to be entertained. They can't even be creative. I found that a lot of young kids, that sense of imagination that we had as kids to invent cowboys and crooks or a tea party with imaginary friends, they don't do that. A lot of kids just don't have that imagination. So learning is a choice. Reading is a choice. So is maths. Kids can read. Every kid can read. They're choosing not to. Why? So what has actually happened without us even being aware of it is that with this break, and even the way we mollycoddling kids, which is a big problem, is that kids have gone back to school more because they have to rather than they want to. And they don't have to listen in class. Why? Because parents are being given the message that sit and do your homework with the kids. So why should they listen? Why should they engage in a lesson when somebody's going to help them? So they're not finding an interest in many of the lessons. If they don't want to do it, they're coming home and they're saying, Mom, help me with my maths. And they haven't even opened a book. So they're not taking challenges, and they become very dependent on somebody always helping them. Now, that dependency is actually, I'd say, go so far as to say it is the cancer of parenting. The more we do for our kids, the more helpless we make them, the more they're opting out. They have no grit. They don't believe they can, and they're not interested. You know, when you think about it, gee whiz, how can a kid be bored when there's so much out there? But they are. So, and it gets worse as they go up the ladder. And I do believe that every kid that feels good about themselves, is self-motivated through the way they're being parented, will fly through school. So let me give you an idea. For instance, every kid's got the ability to self-actualize. A 6-year-old that's self-actualized can't wait to go to school, can't wait to read, practices hard, tries to do maths, picks themselves up, enjoys the challenge of maths, is well socialized, mixes well with kids, is appropriate to pick themselves up when they can't do it and tries again. In other words, they're more independent to want to do things for themselves. So part of our job of parents, and we tend to miss this one, is how do we get kids to like school? Why should a kid not like school? How do we get kids to enjoy learning? By instilling that sense of curiosity. Like a good example, if a kid wants to watch, say 6, 7, 8-year-old, wants to watch a Disney movie or Disney cartoon, who was Walt Disney? Go and look it up on the internet. Just read about him. Young kids can do that. He invented or he created Mickey Mouse. Who else? Go and Google. Start reading. PlayStation, where they made. Read about it. In other words, you've got a link before you allow kids to sit on TV. And if they obviously can read or whatever, they can read up about it. And for instance, PlayStation, they can read up all about PlayStation. Who invented PlayStation? How many do they sell? How many kids are playing? What are the dangers? This is what we're not doing. We're sort of swatting kids away as long as they're out of our head. And this is what's happening. It's a huge problem, and that's what I'm trying to understand. So these kids are ending up being assessed, and they're ending up in all sorts of therapy, which ultimately is hardly helping. It doesn't help a kid that doesn't feel that good about themselves or motivated, turn them into motivated kids. And so the schools are sitting with a big problem because they don't know how to close this gap. They don't know how to get children motivated. And kids are opting out. fewer and fewer kids are involved in extramurals. Fewer and
Mhm.
fewer kids are interested in learning. As I said, they're becoming addicted to these games. Social media rules the waves as they become older. And that is, as I said, they don't have to have friends, live friends. They can connect with them via WhatsApp or on the internet. So there's a lot of factors that parents have to understand their role. And but yet parents are human beings. And if the kids are driving you mad, it's so easy. Go and just sit in front of that TV, get out of our hair. And this is where the problem is really starting. So what I've been really trying to do is help parents understand, how do they get their power back? How do they get their authority back? Not authoritarian. When kids are ruling the roost and running the show. So once the child has lost respect for the parent and is not listening, for want of a better word, we're in trouble. But we need to understand, how do we get that child back under our control? And what is our job, actually? What is our job? We don't understand it. Kids are totally dependent on us to take them into life, equip them with the skills so that they want to take challenges, that they can cope on their own independently, that they love life just because of the challenges of life, rather than just sit and idly play games, keep out of parents' hair and so on. So yeah, so that for me is something that we're ignoring. Even with all the kids in therapy, a lot of therapists have no idea what to say to parents in terms of other things that they should be doing as a parent. So the kids stick in therapy, and it's putting a lot of strain, financially and otherwise, with very little improvement in many cases.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Right.
that's
So, how do
yes.
you motivate a child to start loving school and start actually going to school and bring out that curiosity that you spoke of?
But we've got to be managing them. Parents, a management job. I now brought up three step kids now. It was amazing. When they were in grade 1 or 2 with reading, all I said to them, okay, guys, this is how much you've got to read, practice.
Mhm.
If you don't understand a word, come and ask me. But you practice. When you read to me, if you're going to make more than 2 mistakes per page, you saying to me, Ken, I haven't practiced hard enough. I better go and practice harder. And I stood by that. I was never cross, but that was the rule. So if they did
Mhm.
not stumble around, they were wasting their own time, because that was the deal. But what was the outcome? The outcome was they were reading well in school, in class. They were
Mhm.
getting better marks. They felt better about themselves, and they were getting the results. The same with maths. I mean, if a kid has brought a homework book home and they got the first 2 math sums incorrect, they haven't listened in class. They've got to go and ask the teacher. So, miss, how do I do the sum? I just didn't catch on yesterday, rather than just getting mom and dad to help them. So, mom and dad's job is to ensure that kids start enjoying and not give up. Reading is only practice. That's all it is. And reading is not just putting out your teeth while kids are stumbling through their reading. We got to set the standards. The same with spelling. You got 15 words to spell. Make more than 2 mistakes. You're just saying to me, Ken, I haven't learned hard enough. I better go and try harder. So what happened? They got full marks for their spelling. They felt good about themselves. All kids feel good about themselves when they achieve. But as parents, we've got to try and instill that in them. And what ultimately happened to the kids, they were learning because they wanted to, not because
Mhm.
we wanted them to. I used to say to them, were you happy with your report? They were either happy or, I could have done better in this subject. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to learn harder next term. I know what I've got to do, etc. Instead of us having to take that problem and tell them that we're going to see that they're sitting in their room for 2 hours and all they're doing is whiling the time away. So there's definitely a way of doing it, but we've got to know what we're doing as parents. We're not shouting them on their case. We've got to know how to make it their problem. And that they know if they're not going to achieve what they've agreed to achieve, there got to be certain consequences. And it doesn't have to be punishment. That's very important.
Mhm.
And it starts with an early age, much more difficult as they get older.
Mhm. And well, obviously there are tips that you can use for different age groups as well, because what you do for a 4-year-old, you wouldn't necessarily do for a 14-year-old. Now, when it comes to teenagers, there are times when they would refuse to go to school. What do you do then?
First of all, it's a law. They've got to go to school.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
if they want to go and report to, as a city example, go to the police station and tell the policeman, listen, I don't want to go to school. Let them understand kids have got to go to school. That's the law. But if they've got into that attitude at 14, it's a big problem. You've got to understand by 14, we're sitting with big problems because, bringing up kids is like baking a cake. In other words, we got the ingredients, but if that cake isn't turning out, we're in trouble. By 14, a lot of their personality is already manifested. And if you can't make a kid do anything at 14, you can try and force him, you can stay in his room, doesn't mean he's going to learn. So we've got to get their cooperation. We can't just threaten, and that's it. So we've got to build up some sort of trusting relationship with our teenagers. Now to talk to them, they've got to build up a relationship with us. We've got to understand their world. We've got to understand why they're making the choices. Not always easy. And they definitely need some type of outside mediation. Like if I see the kids, I always get them to agree to seeing the parents as well. And it's amazing how that works. Of course, I'm able to do a very good personality assessment. And kids, if they feel they're being understood, will open up. But the moment they feel they're not understood, they switch off, and there's so many distractions. And they can't see the consequences long term. You must remember, it's a big problem. Only when they get there will they realize. But to be at war with parents at adolescence, very, very difficult. Because the parents have lost credibility, the kids have lost respect. How do you regain your respect with a 15-year-old that you're allowed to sit on his games all day? Now you're telling him he can't sit on the game. Yeah. What do you do if they do? And we have a war situation. So there's no easy answer with an adolescent. It is really something. That's why we've got to recognize we've got to get it right up to adolescence, and then they can sail into adolescence. In other words, we're guiding children into adolescence. So if they feel good about themselves, they'll fly into adolescence, feeling that they can, positive, etc., etc. So it's not an easy situation with a teenager.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dr. Ken, we're going to take a quick short break. So please stay on the line and we will continue thereafter.
Sure. Thank you.
Where? What, this commercial break in progress?
Communities in 21 countries globally. Sponsor a winter pack today for just 600 Rand. Donate online at alimdad.com or call 0861 786 243.
For a long time, we've lived in a centralized world where institutions held the all-important data and confirmed all transactions. Those times are over. Welcome to Libertas Group, a blockchain development company boasting an ecosystem that continually redefines the way we do business. Our blockchain is decentralized, making it immune to hacking or alteration, putting the power back in your hands with no middleman so you can focus on the growth of your business. Libertas, the simplest investment choice you'll make.
Africa. Did you know a sponsored water well and borehole allows children to go back to school, empowers communities, and is a means of sadaqah jariyah? There are many villages in Africa and Afghanistan that are in need of water wells and boreholes. Sponsor a water well in Africa at 14,500 Rand, or a borehole in Africa and Afghanistan at 49,500 Rand. Call Africa Muslims Agency on 011 834 8685 or donate at Africa Muslims Agency. .co.za. Africa Muslims Agency, inspiring the spirit of giving.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You are listening to the Mid Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Mari Mukwanda, and we are talking about what to do when your child loses interest in school and studying. What can you do as a parent? Our WhatsApp lines are open if you have any comments or questions for our guest, Dr. Ken Resnick. The number is 061 766 0355. Dr. Ken, thank you for staying with us. Now, if parents have tried everything that they possibly can. You know, they've worked with the school, they've worked with an educational psychologist and other counselors, etc. but there is no change. What then? What do we do from there?
Yeah, look, if you don't mind me, I'm not sort of punting myself. I think that
Hmm.
one of the big problems is that psychologists and that, certainly when I did research, virtually all parenting programs are focused around helping parents deal with the child's behavior.
Hmm.
And that is part of the problem. It doesn't always work. So, in terms of my whole approach, it's helping parents understand that it's the way we parent that creates the problem. Like, for instance, if you've got a home where the kids are allowed to do what they like, they can switch on the TV and they like, leave things lying around, take things out of the fridge, chaos, and that's how it runs. That kid's got to sit in class and focus. The chances are that he won't. He'll be distracted. He might be a bit of a clown. The next minute, the parents have found the kid's being assessed without taking the parenting style into consideration. A kid that's very overprotected, well, mom's doing everything for them. Look, they don't make any decisions for themselves, telling them what to wear, don't want them to sleep out anywhere. In case something happens to them, they don't leave them alone at parties. So the kid becomes very sort of mummy fuss. And a lot of those kids end up in remedial because they become so dependent they can't make decisions. So if they're not going to be able to make decisions, how assertive can they be as they grow up to know how to say no? They're not well socialized because parents are scared to let them mix in case. So without us understanding what our role is, and the more with a new message of this, what do they call it? But it's sort of overprotective parenting. It's like a pandemic where we've got to interpret things and make sure our kids don't get anxious. Do anything as long as the kid doesn't get anxious. So parents are caught in a bit of a trap there because you can't just go along with feelings. That's not what it's about. And kids don't feel like adults feel. We've got to know our job is to help kids deal with disappointments, pick themselves up and try again. We've got to know how to stay calm. We can't just start shouting at kids. So the moment that we lose it, we're in trouble. And I think I might have mentioned it to you before. Kids, when we get in an aeroplane, we totally trust that pilot. We don't even know who he is, but we trust that he's going to fly us and land us. When kids arrive in this world, they believe their parents can do the job. They totally trust that the parent knows what they're doing. So the moment the parents got to scream and shout, the kids become insecure because the pilots aren't steering the boat. And the message we're getting now, the moment you've got to overcompensate or come out of what could be a comfort zone and only worry about the child, we're only human beings. There's so much we can take, and then we just want to brush them off. So there's a lot of inconsistency with parenting, and we are their guides. So unfortunately, there's virtually no program, except sort of what I do, I suppose, that's helping parents understand that. So that is what I try and do, is help empower parents to understand how to speak to their kid and how to follow through on consequences, make a deal with the child. For instance, if they leave their shoes lying around, you just got to say, I don't believe you don't want your shoes. Why? Well, what they're doing in the lounge. They don't take them, put them away. They confiscate. You don't have to tell them that was the rule in the house. Shoes can't lie around the house. If you choose to leave them lying around the house, you're saying to me, please take my shoes. And you take them because they said to you, take the shoes. And if they're school shoes, they're going to have to tell the principal while they haven't got their shoes. So we've got to know how to stay calm. We've got to know how to stay in control, because when we lose it, we're giving the power to the kids. But nobody seems to know how to do that. And in the training of all professionals, there's nothing on parenting in terms of understanding the role that the parent has. And once we can do that, there is a change quite quickly, especially when you get the kids to cooperate. And this goes across with all disorders. And that is where, and parents often don't, it's so much easier to send a kid for an assessment than something that they might have to do, or that they might have to learn. But they brought the kids into the world. It's the most important job in the world, a job, as I said. And if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But you're not going to, it's going to have its impact on kids. The problem is they get different messages. But what's very worrying today is this new, what do they call it? This kid, mollycoddling parenting. It is disastrous as far as I'm concerned. Because kids, how are they going to cope with life? You know, it's like keeping kids at home and then throwing them out at 18, and they've got to go into that world with absolutely no skills. So we're not realizing that, and it's coming out in all levels of education. Suicide with younger kids, depression, attitude, addiction to games. addiction to social media, depression because of social media with the bullying that's going on. Well, we're allowing little 5-year-olds to sit 2, 3, 4 hours on a device, on an iPad. Then the next minute the kids got OT problems because they all bent over. We're allowing them to whine. Instead of saying, right, practice properly, come and talk to me properly, otherwise I can't hear. And so many kids in speech therapy. So we've got all of this pressure on kids, plus the on parents, plus all the problems with with other pressures that parents have in terms of their job, etc. So that is a problem, and we've got to try and understand that. So we don't seem to be educating parents because they hold the key. The problem is we don't know how to get them on board properly, help them to understand their job. But there's no question when a parent does feel confident and knows there is change. So parents got to be prepared to just do that. Unfortunately, not that many, in the training, there's not much on parenting. But I've just seen the changes. I've just got a phone ringing here. I'll just turn that off. So that's the story there.
All right. Thank you for your time, Dr. Ken. I think we definitely need parenting workshops, and it needs to be all year round. Because we do not know what we're doing as parents. We don't know how much to shout, how little to shout, how much consequences to give, and we don't know. We think we're doing the right thing, and there it turns out the kids that. All right, Dr. Ken, I'm going to let you take that. So thank you for your time, and
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Thanks very much.
That was a educational psychologist, Dr. Ken Resnick, taking us through what to do when your child loses interest in school. If you have any further comments, you can leave them in the comments section. But for now, stay with us. We will be right back.